Hello and welcome to Chess Please. My name is Andy, and in my humble opinion, Magnus Carlsen is excellent at chess. I want to showcase exactly why I think that with just one sampling of a recent game of his against Jan-Krzysztof Duda of Poland. This game took place 2 days ago at the Meltwater Chess Champions Tour. Duda, no mug himself, he is a top 15 player in the world, recently won the World Cup of Chess, which is a thing for Poland, so by no means a mug, but Magnus Carlsen puts together an absolutely scintillating, vicious attack with a Queen's Gambit variation, which I wanted to walk through step by step and just showcase, the brilliance of Magnus Carlsen a couple of times during this game. So, kicking off, jumping in here, the first 8 moves of this game, and spoiler alert, this game is not going to last long. The first 8 moves are pretty much theory. We'll end up in a Queen's Gambit declined exchange variation. We get there through a couple of transpositions via the Indian game and ultimately end up with what's called, to give it its full title, at this position. So again, this is just sort of opening, sparring, Queen's Gambit declined, normal stuff. This opening is called the Queen's Gambit declined semi-Tarrasch mainline Pillsbury variation. Yeah, rolls right off the tongue. Chess is hard. The openings are really hard. Suffice it to say, both of these players are very comfortable with these openings. They know them like the back of their hand up to a certain point. And in this game, that point is here. As soon as Magnus Carlsen decides not to defend this pawn, which is being attacked by the queen, he just slides the rook across to b1 and says, here, take it. And he offers Duda this deal with the devil. If this is Magnus Carlsen offering you a free pawn on move 9 of a pretty standardized opening up to this point, he's probably cooking up something. But that said, not only is it a free pawn, it comes with check. So essentially what Carlsen is offering here is he's saying to Duda, look, just take this. Generally the trade back of a gambit like this, a pawn offering like this, is that the queen is going to have to take time to come down here, grab the pawn, and there's no other forces available for Duda just yet. So that queen's probably not going to be too safe there for too long. But that itself is mitigated by the offer of check there as well. So a very, very alluring offer here from Carlsen. And again, we're almost in the territory of novelty. I believe this position was reached once before at the Grandmaster level. So there's no way he knows this just like rattles off the top of his head. However, he shows a bit of restraint, and rather than taking this pawn straight away, he just develops a night out. He says, look, we need to get our forces into the game. This guy is doing some weird stuff and I don't like it, but we're just going to play steady. And then Magnus Carlsen sweetens the deal with the devil by bringing out this bishop to d3. And what that does is essentially now if the queen takes, you can't even block with the bishop anymore because you'll lose this bishop. So you have to block with the queen, trade off, you liquidate, you're a pawn up, and black is just a little bit better there. Or the king will just have to step to the side, never to be able to castle. And at this stage, Duda is a mere mortal, so he accepts this absolutely tantalizing offer and he takes the pawn on c3 with check. Again, we ruled out bishop here because you can just take. Queen here offering the trade is, it's not great for white. Probably you would be alright, but it's not the reason he gave up that pawn. So rather than any of that nonsense, the king just bails. The king just says, you know what, I don't need this in my life. And you have to respect that. It's healthy to set boundaries. And the king finds a little bit of respite on f1. And at this point, this is probably black is better. The computer still thinks black is better at this stage. And Duda just gets on with developing. He just says, listen, I'll get my bishop out. Again, just going to amass some forces, prepare to castle. We're a pawn up. I don't know what that was all about, but we're a pawn up. They can't castle. This could be going worse. And then Magnus drops not quite the hammer, but he plays h4. And when Magnus Carlsen plays h4, it's a little bit like you don't know necessarily what's coming, but you know it's bad. That is a fighting move. That is Magnus Carlsen saying, I'm coming for you. It's now. It's go time. We are getting ready to throw down, and I'm making the first move. So when he plays h4, the clear idea here is he's looking to develop this rook, because that rook is never going to find its way to the center of the board through traditional means, because castling is no longer an option. So the rook is going to make its way up here. Little rook lift, threaten the king. Not like that. Something like that. But yeah, it's go time. Magnus Carlsen is saying, yep, we're ready. I'm ready to launch this attack. And Duda, seeing that, says, okay, well, I better get my king the hell out of dodge and get him into the corner. We can amass some defensive resources there. In retrospect, it's not going to be enough. The rook lift is complete. Rook to h3. And now, aside from amassing forces towards the king like this, the third rank is now lava for this black queen. Because while there are two pieces in the way of this X-ray, the rook is still targeting the queen. And if you look a little bit closer, you'll see that these two pieces can be moved out of the way with a ferocious amount of initiative. Namely something like bishop taking here, king taking back, knight taking, both with check. If that happens, all of a sudden those two pieces are gone and the rook has a free path to the black queen, and black has had no time to move her out of there because they've been dealing with checks. So very, very quickly the black's queen is going to find herself in need of getting out of there. Not quite yet, because black isn't obligated to take here, but again it just smells something really dangerous going to happen, and the knight moves in here as an additional defender, a crucial defender of this square, and in general just trying to solid up the king side really. And then Magnus Carlsen brings even a little bit more danger to the situation by moving his knight here to e5. This is very much an octopus knight. It controls 8 wonderful squares in the center of the board and is pretty solid in here. Now, what you might be thinking is queen can take here, but that same problem applies of a discovered attack. Bishop takes there, that's check. Queen could just mop up queen and the game is over. So, at this point the queen has to move right now, because this will cause black to lose their queen. So the queen has to get out of there. And again, looking closely, there aren't that many places the queen can go. Namely here, here is possible, and that's kind of it, I think. Anyway, no great places for the queen to go. Queen drops back here. Some sort of pressure on this knight, not really because of the pawn, but it's a little too late. Rook across here, and now the attack is becoming pretty much insurmountable at this stage. There are a couple of weird computer defenses that Duda could have possibly found, but in the moment, very, very tough. He plays very naturally here. Gets the king out of the line of fire, and the computer does not like this at all, and probably because it sees what's coming. But, staying there and, allowing this, and, even potentially something like this or knight in there, any of this is nasty, nasty stuff. So, again, all of this stemming from that pawn sacrifice on c3, and since then Duda has been chasing his tail, and Magnus has just been throwing punch after punch, and there just hasn't been a moment to catch their breath. Bishop in here as well, and the rationale behind this move is get rid of this knight. That knight is black's best defender. Just trade it down. That bishop wasn't really doing much in the attack before, so why not just liquidate there? And it's going to be pretty much a free-for-all on black's king once that knight is out of the picture. And Duda reckons, listen, we'll at least force their hand there. We don't want that bishop just hanging around. And then Magnus Carlsen says, you're right, I don't want that bishop hanging around. So instead of taking the knight, he takes the pawn on h6. And again, this is after already giving away a pawn. He just sacrifices his bishop there. Has to take back there, but because it's going to get pretty nasty very, very quickly.
Stop! He's already dead.
And after that bishop sacrifice and the pawn recapture, Magnus Carlsen just slides the queen on into action there on f3. And at this point, Duda actually resigned. And he resigned because Magnus Carlsen, there just isn't anything the pieces can do. If the rook comes across to cover here, knight in there is checkmate. And once the queen moves up here, this pawn is indefensible. If it pushes on, queen comes in here, checkmate. If the knight moves here, we just take the knight. Any number of different things that happen pretty much all end up in Black's king getting mated in the next couple of moves. So Duda resigns. There was some absolute madness that the computer found with queen in here, queen up here, queen take here. Just some real nonsense. Or actually even queen take there and maybe back into defend or lose the queen. Some real computer BS. But Duda again is a mere mortal, and he naturally didn't find that weirdness. And even at that weirdness, the computer has white up 7 points of material, at the very, very least. So he rightfully resigned, and this just encapsulates just why Magnus Carlsen is so good. Just a pretty non-innocuous, because obviously it didn't turn out to be, but a completely alluring pawn sacrifice there on c3. Duda takes it because of all of the factors in favour, according to conventional chess wisdom, of taking that pawn. And Magnus Carlsen just has this in the locker to completely decimate the king side and win against a grandmaster in 18 moves, which is something I haven't managed myself, and very, very few people ever have, because grandmasters are also good at chess. So that was a quick recap of one of the reasons why Magnus Carlsen is such a fabulous chess player. Great to watch. Most of these grandmaster games are like way over my head, but this one just really stuck with me as just some fabulous attacking chess. And I hope I was able to shed a little light on it for yourselves. Let me know if you enjoyed this. I can do more recaps like this. And if you did have a good time, feel free to subscribe, stick around, give it a like, whatever you want to do. Helps the channel just keep going, motivationally really. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.